Greetings of the season to you, our esteemed viewer, and welcome to this special edition of Power Wheel, a production of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN. This edition features a highlight of the year 2019. The year began at TCN with multiple commissioning of power transformers nationwide and continued with the TCN management synergizing with state governments on critical transmission projects, then to the hosting of the 14th General Assembly of the West African Power Pool WAP in November in Abuja. All these and more will make your memory of 2019 quite an exciting one as you stay with us in the next half hour. I am Chinwenwa Anyao, and this is Power Wheel. The Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, has a calculated target of increasing the bulk electricity wheeling capacity to 20,000 megawatts. It has continually pushed for the realization of this with the strict implementation of the Transmission Rehabilitation and Expansion Program, TREP. The steady implementation of this program and policy was a focal point in year 2019 for the power utility.
Before, all the focus was on how to expand the network. There is no much focus on the quality, but this time we are not only focusing on the expansion, but we are also focusing on the quality of power.
In realizing these objectives, TCN announced that the bulk power wheeling capacity has risen to 8,100 megawatts, rising from the 7,100 megawatts realized after a simulation process in 2017. Adding to this capacity, TCN successfully commissioned 6 transmission substations and about 1,000 MVA power transformer capacity across 7 states in the first quarter, with plans for more projects under the TREP. Here are the highlights.
In January 2019, TCN commissioned 5 transformers across 3 existing substations in Katsina, Kano, and Niger states, while it commissioned 2 brand new substations in Katsina and Kano. By February 2019, TCN focused more on the commissioning of transmission substations, which it did across 4 states. 2 substations were commissioned in the Northeast, one in Lagos and another in Kebbi State, to wheel additional bulk electricity to improve the experience of customers of the respective discos.
The head transmission service provider TSP for TCN, Engineer Victor Adewumi, in an interview speaks of plans to complete and commission more transmission projects.
We are investing so much by commissioning all these substations. Unfortunately, like we have been saying, this investment we are putting into transmission sector might not really last if discos refuse to invest, especially where we have a direct connection, with discos where they don't have injection substations.
The Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, launched the Abuja Transmission Project in April that could turn around the capacity of bulk power delivery for Abuja for the next 2 decades. The company also conducted series of trainings and implemented other strategic actions, all in the second quarter and first half of the year 2019.
TCN began the execution of the Abuja Feeding Scheme project in April 2019. It is designed to add 5 substations in the capital city to raise transmission capacity by 624 megawatts. The project, worth $170 million, is being funded by the French Development Agency, AFD, with a maximum completion timeline of 24 months. The Managing Director, CEO of TCN, Mr. Yuji Mohammed, said the scheme, comprising 2 330 kV substations and 3 132 kV substations, will solve bulk power wheeling supply issues in the FCT.
This Abuja transmission scheme is actually to solve the transmission and the transformation problem of Abuja, I think, in the next 20 years. Because currently Abuja has only 2 330 kV substations. We are putting additional 2. Currently Abuja has 5 132 kV substation. We are adding another 3 330 kV substation. And this project is financed by the French Development Agency.
Well, praying for the continued guidance of Almighty God and the hard work of men, I want to open this ground for further construction.
There were a series of training during the course of the year for various staff of TCN, especially those in the system operations. Among these is the Engineers Development Program, which has several badges targeted at early career operators to learn from the veterans. During one of the badges at the TCN National Control Center NCC in Osogbo, the Osun State capital, the head Independent System Operations ISO Engineer Mamman Lawal was represented by the Executive Director, Human Resources, Mr. Justin Dodo, said the training was important for the participants to bring them up to speed with the changing technology in the power industry.
We have to keep training and keep training. That's the only way we can keep pace with advancement in technology. So we don't want to recruit people who are at the point of entry or qualified and leave them underqualified on the job, because it will be very, very expensive in the long run if we do not train you.
At another training on communication at the TCN substation in Akwanga, Nasarawa State, held in October, the system operator Engineer Mamman Lawal advised staff of the communications department of TCN to make the best use of their refreshed skills sets. TCN presented certificates of outstanding performance to 11 of its engineers who emerged after a series of coordinated training programs. The head Independent System Operator ISO, Engineer Mamman Lawal, who represented the Managing Director and CEO of TCN, Mr. UG Mohammed, at the certificate presentation ceremony, congratulated the distinguished engineers.
You must appreciate that the invitation extended to you severally is actually meant to formally receive you as a mark of our appreciation of the outstanding performance you exhibited in the course of the training program. Our expectation is that you will carry this to greater heights.
We are honored to be here and we are happy. We promise to put all we've learned in the training in practice. Thank you and may God bless.
I really am grateful for this opportunity, and I believe the rest of my colleagues are as well. And we hope that this is the beginning of this training as well. We hope that we become the TCN or the NEPA, the professional NEPA staff that used to that NEPA is known for, the professionalism, the ability to deliver wherever, so that we have the skills that needed to take this industry forward.
The present management of TCN is boosting the capacity of the in-house engineers in no small measure. This was demonstrated by the engineers in fixing and energizing of critical power transformers and other bulk power transmission facilities in the course of the year.
The engineers of TCN fixed several faulty transformers and put them back on the grid in the year. A 60 MVA transformer that failed since 2017 at the 132-33 kV Caro transmission substation in Abuja was revived.
And that bond terminal, since we have from our scraps, then we now, this is the bond terminal, and there are so many loose contacts on the selector switch. So we went and removed this from a scrap transformer. And then the other terminals, the loose terminals, we now amended them, and by God's grace, the transformer is going to come back to life.
The 132-33 transmission substation in Kubwa area of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, was also given a facelift as the in-house engineers installed a 60 MVA power transformer to replace a faulty one at the substation.
We are going back to the initial install capacity. What I told you that is 96 megawatts. So when we bring back that, we are going to go back to our 96 megawatts instead of the 48 we are having presently.
Power grid frequency stability is among the 4 core objectives of the Transmission Rehabilitation and Expansion Program of TCN. Engineer Maman Lawal, the head of the Independent System Operator ISO, a business unit at TCN, speaks on the milestones the company has attained in this regard.
The grid has been relatively stable in the sense that disturbances don't occur as frequently as they used to be, right? We have been able to keep operating frequency within limits. Initially, we had it set at between 49.50 Hz to 50.50 Hz. Subsequently, we improved on this and the parameters were constrained to within 49.8 Hz to 50.2 Hz. So there has been a remarkable improvement, and we have been able to achieve this, to sustain this, performance level. But as we try to put in the requisite facilities on ground, we also encourage our engineers to deploy means, right, to introduce stopgap measures so that before we get to the destination, at least we are still able to keep the grid running and improve on our performance. There are so many ways. We have the so-called generation dispatch tool, you have the distribution dispatch tool, all right? So these are deployed to ensure that our interaction with other players in the sector, okay, is made more efficient.
You're still on to Power Wheel, a program of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN. One of the best ways to achieve success is teamwork. The management of TCN practiced this strategy during the year under review by having elaborate and yielding collaborations with the state governments and the realization of critical bulk power transmission projects.
The TCN MD, Mr. UG Mohammed, led his management team on a courtesy visit to the Kano State Governor, Abdullahi Ganduje, at the State Liaison Office in Abuja during the year. Governor Abdullahi Ganduje of Kano State said the place of electricity was crucial in the revival of industries in the state. It was the turn of Ebonyi State on the state-wide collaborative move of TCN. The Ebonyi State Governor, Mr. David Umuahi, who led his team on a courtesy visit to the leadership of the management of TCN in Abuja recently, said the government was willing to support TCN and other industry players.
I think we need to work together, especially with the support of the ministry. There are many things we can do together to move forward.
Towards ensuring that there is more access to electricity in Borno State, the state governor, Professor Babagana Umara Zulum, says he will continuously collaborate with the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN.
We'll work with you, Your Excellency, to ensure that we solve the problem of the state, because it's very pathetic that every day we hear our people die. We will work with you to ensure that anything we can do to support you, we'll do it, Your Excellency.
Away from the collaboration with state actors, TCN in year 2019 constantly engaged with international development partners and financial institutions. The TCN has raised about $1.6 billion long-term funds from these institutions towards executing bulk power projects, among others. We bring you a highlight of some of these engagements.
TCN had several meetings with AFD, the French Agency for International Cooperation, especially as it concerns the funding of the ongoing Abuja Transmission Ring project. It also had meetings with the World Bank. Of significant importance was the meeting of TCN management with the representatives from World Bank, where issues of how to strengthen the distribution section of the value chain were discussed.
Let's take a break for a message.
In the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, we transmit bulk electricity from power generating companies, GenCos, to distribution load centers of various distribution companies, DISCOs. Nationwide, we do not generate electricity, neither do we distribute same directly to electricity consumers. TCN has two business units, the Transmission Service Provider, TSP, and Independent System Operations, ISO. The ISO comprises of System Operation, SO, and Market Operation, MO. The business units all perform specialized functions under the TCN umbrella. Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, wielding power for national economic growth. This message is brought to you by the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN.
Mr. Uji Mohammed is not just the Managing Director and CEO of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN. He's also the Chairman Executive Board of the West African Power Pool, WAP. Under his leadership, Nigeria hosted the 14th General Assembly of WAP, where about 16 countries were in Abuja for the week-long program.
The 14th WAP General Assembly began with a sensitization walk in Abuja and culminated in the delivery of a keynote address by President Muhammadu Buhari, represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, SGF, Boss Gida Mustafa. At least 35 power utility firms from 15 member countries participated at the WAP meeting with the theme, ECOWAS Regional Electricity Markets, Today and Future Opportunities. This session, which was hosted by the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, and Mainstream Energy Solutions Limited, had the joint opening ceremony of the meetings of the organizational committees. The chairman of WAP Executive Board, Mr. Uji Mohammed, addressed the delegates during the ceremony.
We have to work hard to ensure that we reach the next level, because we want WAP to be a pace setter in the entire Africa.
The Minister of Power, Engineer Salim Mamman, formally launched the North Core project. Mamman was represented by the Minister of State Power, Mr. Godi J.D. Agba.
Implementation of the WAP North Core project shall complement the already existing interconnections between Nigeria and Benin Togo, as well as Nigeria and Niger, to facilitate power exchange within the sub-region, thereby reinforcing the participation of Nigeria in the developing markets.
Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari emphasized on the need for power utility regulators across must ensure strong and proactive regulation, applying penalties for electricity firms to give quality performance.
One major area I would also want to highlight regarding electricity in our dear region today and going forward is regulation. Local and regional regulators, as well as operators in the industry, must be strong. It must be firm, effective, proactive, technology and knowledge driven.
The Minister of Power, Engineer Salim Mamman, said,
with the abundant gas resources in Nigeria and the effort of the present administration of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to strengthen the power sector as well as ease of doing business in the country, Nigeria, the potential to generate and export low-cost electricity to the region, in addition to strengthen the transmission capacity of the national grid. Several other projects which are also in the WAP priority project are being developed notably.
As the year drew to a close, the Managing Director of TCN, Mr. Uji Mohammed, held a routine press briefing with newsmen in Abuja. At least 68 power transformers have been commissioned since he assumed office at TCN in 2017. Stay with us for the highlights of these milestones.
As at October 2019, we have installed 68 power transformers across the nation. This is the highest that has happened in the history of Nigeria in recent times. In fact, it has never happened like that. And so we are on track in the implementation of the transmission, rehabilitation and expansion program.
Mr. Mohammed, who is also the chairman executive board of the West African Power Pool WAP, said the TREP targets raising the bulk power transmission wheeling capacity from 6,500 megawatts to 10,000 megawatts in 2020 and reaching 20,000 megawatts. He stated that massive lines reconductoring of key transmission lines are in progress.
As we all witness the end of another year, it's a time to take stock and ask ourselves, how have we fared in 2019? Transmission company news spoke with some staff on their feelings about the outgoing year. Let's listen to their views.
This new management came with a lot of changes. I've been in TCN for past 5 years, in the headquarters here for the past 5 years now. For instance, the business process have changed. And secondly, the way among the TCM staff handle their jobs now have changed. We have now put in more zeal and commitment to the job because of the kind of motivations that the workers have receiving.
We can't know the distance in between the driver or the management. We are working hand in hand to make sure that TCN move very well.
Looking at few years, if you look at what the transmission has tremendously been improved. If you look at the capacity this present management came and the capacity we have now, you see that there are some improvement. And when you look around, you see that there are some expansion going on. I can tell you the present management has tried in so many ways, like expanding the capacity of the power, the wind power, and so many other ways. But I can tell you the relationship between the management and the union so far is cordial. We have not any cause for now. We don't have any wrinkle, we don't have any problem. But one thing I can tell you and not is that at any point we come to the management with our request, they do give us listening ear.
We have had trainings of engineers. In Oshobo, we had trainings of engineers. I'm not sure about the numbers now, but I'm sure there are well over 400 engineers. ISO. We also had engineers trained for TSP. That was organized by NAPTIN. NAPTIN is the National Power Training Institute of Nigeria. So you see that this year engineers have been trained very well.
We've heard all they said about the year. We pray that year 2020 will be a better year for all of us.
That is it on Power Wheel this year. On behalf of the entire management of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, and the crew members of Power Wheel, compliments of the season, and we wish you a prosperous new year. Watch out for a refreshing episode of your darling program next week. This episode and the previous ones are available on our YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can also interact with us on these other platforms showing on your screen as we strive to serve you better. I am Chiwenwa Anyao. See you next year.